Hey guys, it's me Haru, and welcome to episode 3 of SpyroCast. Today, my special guest is that Canadian dad, Canadian Guy A. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. It's really good.
Yeah, congratulations. Your son was just born. That's awesome.
Thank you so much. He's a little pooping angel. That's the best way to describe him.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, and I saw I was right there with you when you did your Crash live stream that you did earlier. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
The failure, the sadness.
4 hours of trying to do Stormy Ascent. Hey, it was a great attempt, you know?
It was. And you know what? Here's the funny thing, and I haven't made this public yet because I'm going to do it on live stream. I tried it the next morning. I got it done the first try.
Oh my god, you did? That's amazing.
So but I have to do it on live stream. So and then I tried doing it again. I failed every time ever since. I was like, oh come on! I just did it.
I know, like you can do it when nobody else is watching.
Yeah, and I'm just like, oh man. So that's kind of, I'm a little salty about that, but you know what? Hey, I'll get there. I'll get there. Don't worry. That means the next stream I should get there in less than 4 hours, 3 hours and 50 minutes. I'll get there.
Yeah. All right. So, starting this, I always ask, what is your history with Spyro?
You know, I was thinking about that today, and I had to think really far back, and it actually started with didn't start with Spyro. It started with Crash Bandicoot.
Okay.
My favorite Crash game, which was the only Crash game that my brother owned, was Crash Bandicoot Warped. And I played Warped all the time. I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it. And then my brother came home one day, and he said that I think he was either a co-worker. My brothers, between I are almost 15 years apart. And he told me that there was a secret code in Crash Bandicoot.
Ah.
And I was like, oh, secret code to what? And he said, just some game, I guess. So we had internet at the time. And, back then, having internet was a privilege. So we were looking it up until finally we found a site, or he found a site that had the code. So we punched it in, and this text popped up that said Spyro the Dragon. And I'm like, what is this? So he clicks it, and when it opened up to Artisan's Homeworld, I started fangirling the most possible way. It was just so beautiful, and we were both amazed by the fact that it wasn't like Crash Bandicoot where it was part A to B linear with very little, in between. It was, you want to go over there, you can go over there. You want to fly over here, you can fly over here.
Right.
And as soon as my brother finished the demo, I ripped the controller out of his hands, and I was probably 5 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I played, and then it got to the point where literally I played the demo more than I played Crash Bandicoot. And I would finish the demo, go back to the title screen, punch the cheat code in myself, do it again and again and again and again and again. And my sister noticed this, and I think it was for either Christmas or for my birthday, she bought my very first game, which was Spyro the Dragon.
Nice.
And it took off from there. And it was really cool. It was really cool and I always remembered though, and my sister would always get upset at me, but I loved Artisan's Homeworld so much and all the levels in it that as soon as I would always get to Beast Makers, and then I would miss Artisan's Homeworld, so I would start a new file and play around in Artisan's Homeworld again. But I would because he had 3 saves, right?
Yeah.
And I would have the 2 saves, but I didn't want to delete them, so I deleted my sister's account to do it. And she was at Nasty's lair, and she wasn't impressed.
Oh, that's too bad. Yeah, you're just so mesmerized with Artisans that you just had to be there again.
Yeah, and I didn't like when you went back, you couldn't step on the dragons again, because I always loved stepping on the dragons and them unlocking and seeing what they said. It was such a surreal experience to play Spyro. You're playing as a purple dragon running around. You can fly and breathe fire. That's just a childhood dream.
Yeah. It's really cool to play as a dragon. I remember when I first played it, I really can't remember that far back. It was such a long time ago, but I was just like, wow, this is just really cool because I think. Spyro the Dragon is the game that cemented my love of the platformer genre.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So when I was, playing that, I was like, I want to play games like this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was just so cool.
That's when I discovered Super Mario 64 as well, from Spyro, even though I believe Super Mario 64 came before Spyro. I can't remember. I'm not sure of the times
yes,
on that one.
Super Mario 64 came out same year as Crash Bandicoot, 1996.
Right. So we picked up Super Mario 64 later on when it went a little bit reduced in price because everyone we know my family we didn't have a lot of money back then, and we were constantly like, oh yeah, we'll pick up Super Mario 64 when it goes down in price, and it never did.
Yeah.
So it didn't really. So it went down. Like, it was like one day. Oh, it was like a 2-day deal where it went down like $10. And finally, my brother was just like, forget it, we'll pick it up. Or my dad. I think it was my dad or my mom said, fine, we'll pick it up. We've been waiting too long, we'll pick it up. And when I picked up Super Mario 64, I was able to pick it up fairly easy because of my love of Spyro.
Nice. Yeah, I haven't been so much into Nintendo as I am with like Sony platformers and stuff like that. But there are some games that I like Banjo-Tooie is one of my favorite games of all time. I love that game, and specifically Banjo-Tooie. Because I played that one first, so I went back and played Kazooie, and I was like, I don't like the fact that you don't have all the moves that you have in the sequel.
Right. Actually, I play Banjo-Tooie as well, and I had the exact same reaction when I played the first one. I was just like, I kind of wish I had. I kind of wish that I could go back to Tooie, and Tooie was a big one for me as well. I remember seeing the commercial for that, and I remember I got it for my birthday. My mom, I saw the commercial, I pointed at the screen, I turned to my mom, I said, "Birthday, that's what I want."
Yeah. Yeah, same way like DK64 and all that. It's still fun. It's platformer, so it's fun.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, next question. What is your favorite Spyro game?
Oh boy, I always get asked this question, and I'm always left thinking, oh dear. I love the first one, I did, and I love going around Artisan's Homeworld, but I think I always say that Year of the Dragon and Ripto's Rage is tied, and I always thought that until a recent playthrough. And when I played it through, I think Ripto's Rage squeaks by as first place. Not by much, but just squeaks by as my favorite. And reason being, it was all based on the fact of Ripto was such a hilarious character. Ripto was so funny. He was interesting. Not that the sorceress wasn't interesting, but it was just that we didn't really get to know as much about her as we did with Ripto.
Yeah. But then again, I mean, some people complain that like Ripto didn't really do anything, but like it's still, I think, I don't know, he's still my favorite Spyro villain.
Yeah.
Like just because of, like his attitude and just like the way he is, just his personality in general. Like,
well, it's that people said he didn't do anything, and that's the joke. That's the thing. He does nothing.
Yeah, he does nothing.
He's evil. That's the joke. Like,
it's so funny.
I'm the petty master of evil. And that's the concept that they're going for, and that was the point. He didn't do anything. It's like, that's the point. He's useless.
Exactly.
He's a little. He needs a henchman.
That is so funny. Yeah, and that's probably a huge reason why I like him. Oh yeah. So, but yeah, a lot of people say that Ripto's Rage is their favorite of the trilogy. So I'm not surprised that you'd say that.
Yeah, I believe Josh Gaming said the same thing.
Yes, he did.
But actually, before, I thought Year of the Dragon was going to be my favorite. And I played through it, and yes, there were aspects that were better in Year of the Dragon than there were in Spyro 2. But I just couldn't. But I will say this, though, about Spyro 1. For me, the most memorable music was from Spyro 1.
Yes, that is true.
That was like, some of the music in Spyro 1 was absolutely astounding. Still, my favorite to this day, which people sometimes give me a look, is Stonehill. The music behind Stonehill, to me, was really powerful.
Yeah, Stonehill has a really good track. I think, I've said this before that all the tracks in Spyro 1 are like they're a lot more memorable and unique than the tracks that would later be heard in like 2 and 3. Because they don't, like, sound electronic. They're more, like, bassy and, like, kind of got the drum beats and stuff like that. It's just... Oh, yeah. It's rocking. It's really cool.
Yeah. There was only, like, a few songs in, like, Spyro 2 and 3 that I considered memorable. And specifically, too, Gateway to Glimmer. Again, that was a really great track. Really well done. I really liked Glimmer.
Yeah,
but then when you think back, some of the music that I hear it's like it's good, but it wasn't on the scale of epic that it was in Spyro 1.
Right.
And that's why I still think Spyro 1 is my, like, the Artisan's Homeworld music, fantastic. But then when you think of the homeworlds from 2 and 3, they're more atmospheric.
Yes.
And they're not quite as, like, you wouldn't listen to this as, like, you wouldn't turn on your iPhone or your Android or whatever, pop on the Spyro original soundtrack and listen to Summer Forest. You wouldn't. It's just like a drone. But you would listen to Artisan's Homeworld, you would listen to Beastmakers, etc., etc. There's a lot more as just music that you would be able to listen to, and it was really well done.
Yeah, that was something that was really unique about the Homeworld soundtracks for Spyro 2 is the ambient sounding music.
Yeah.
And which sounds kind of like it's kind of like the Legend series, kind of like how all the music in those games were kind of like that.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Yeah, and I like the music in the Legend game. I just didn't think that they were on the same level as the originals, just because they were kind of generic, sort of, in a sense.
I get what you mean. We on my live stream, I jokingly nicknamed it Kitty God of War. Because you're just running around and you're killing stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
I liked what they tried to do with it, but I think what happened was that they strayed so far from the original Spyro story that it didn't have that magic. It didn't have the same magic. Now, to some people, they would argue with me till they're blue in the face that The Legend of Spyro was superior to OG Spyro.
Right.
And I can understand, because they see the story, and I get it. I get the story that they're trying to go for, and the story was fairly good in some aspects. But you have to tone back and remember that Spyro was originally, all his job was he was just a little kid trying to save the world. That was it. It was a basic story. It wasn't complex. There was no plot twists. And that was the point, right? It's like if you tried giving Super Mario a complex story, like a super complex bios and super complex. No, Mario is Mario, and that's it. And Nintendo acknowledges that.
Right.
And they tried taking Spyro, and they tried taking him to a direction that wasn't really Spyro. It's like it's the same thing. Like if you took Crash Bandicoot and then put him into a serious situation. I mean, let's face it. All Crash does is "wow" and dies and runs around, right? So if you try to, it wasn't never meant. Yeah, it was never meant as a serious game.
Yeah.
And that's what Legend of Spyro went. I liked their attempt, and I liked where they were going with it. And I think that maybe with a bit more time, maybe if they had a little bit more platforming and less of that story, and to actually craft something out of it, because there is still platformers that have good story, but you need to be able to present it in a way that's a little bit less of a beat 'em up and more platformy.
Right, because because if you look at Legend of Spyro, like on the outside, it seems like this grand, complicated story, but really, like on the inside, at its core, it's just your typical Chosen One story, and it's like it is just like kind of boring. Because it seems like that's a thing that happens a lot nowadays.
Yeah, it's the Chosen One prophecy. It's the one that we've heard multiple times. We hear it all the time. I mean, for example, I don't know if you've seen it, but I made a theory video talking about the going in depth and the possibility of all three Spyros being canon, and it ties in the prophecy of the concept of there is one purple dragon born every 10 generations.
Oh, so wait, so you're on board with the reincarnation theory or something like that, at least?
Yeah, I made the video that I made that video talking about that each Spyro is a reincarnation of the same spirit or the same soul.
Oh, so were you the one who started that?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So that's because, all right, because a lot of people keep talking about that. I'm like, really? Where did that come from? So I didn't know you were the one who started that. Well,
it was the rebirth theory.
Right. So I don't know if I personally believe that, but I can see where you get that from, and I think it is I think it's a really good theory.
Yeah, it's a plausible. It's like I'm not the whole point that I'm trying to make. What I would do with the theory, or the way I would take it, is that in order to be able to, like, let's say if you were to create, like, after the Reignited trilogy is finished, right?
Yeah.
After everything's been said and done, you turn to Spyro and say, okay, what now? What do we do now? Do we just put him back into Skylanders? Do we make his own spin-off game? What do we do, right? Because I always like looking towards the future and the future of a project. And it's like, okay, Reignited Trilogy, beautiful. The most important thing about the fact that the Reignited Trilogy is coming out is the fact that they're bringing life back into the original Spyro concept, which is a platformer. Not as a Toys to Life, not as an RPG, as a platformer. And to see that after Reignited Trilogy is done and, you know, September rolls in and we've platinumed the game twice on PlayStation and we've done all these things, now you turn and say, okay, now what? What are you going to do with the series? And the concept that I made of the rebirth theory was an idea in a sense of where if you wanted to not cause strife within the Spyro community and wanted to be able to include all Spyros, what if you did a rebirth theory and this is the origin story and the fourth game would be the fourth incarnation of Spyro, and then you continue on from there. It's just an idea to be able to perhaps pursue a fourth game.
Yeah, and I think that's a fantastic way to look at it, because then you kind of view it in a way where everybody can be happy because everybody kind of gets a little bit of what they like. Some people prefer original, some people like Legend, and some people like Skylanders.
Yeah, and some people like all. And that, it wouldn't be like necessarily like ingrained into the main story, but now that what happens is that it takes the route almost of like the Legend of Zelda, but not confusing. You know, Legend of Zelda, it's, you know, the three spirits are reborn every certain generations, and then there's different timelines, and there's different...
Yeah.
Don't even get me started on that.
Every game is like a different incarnation or something. It's really confusing.
Yeah, it is so confusing. But if you apply this, you now are tying in aspects from the original three games. Now, you can still have that fourth game as a standalone Spyro game and do its own thing, but you can do callbacks to that original idea of, okay, there were other Spyros beforehand thousands of years ago.
Yes. And
so that's the whole point and purpose of the concept of the rebirth theory, is to bring everyone together and to be able to possibly pursue a fourth game hand in hand.
Yes. So some people also say that Malefor is like was a corrupted Spyro from the past. How do you feel about that?
That was part of my theory. That was one plausibility, was that it was a corrupted Spyro in a sense, where but it was only one plausibility because now we're entering the realm of unknown. And it's kind of hard to be able to actually, you know, determine this, but in a way it could be a possibility. It is possible that Malefor was a fourth incarnation of Spyro. Some people, in my theory, I initially thought that perhaps Malefor was OG Spyro corrupted, but then I went on to think about it and I was like, maybe that's not the right possibility, but maybe Malefor was an incarnation of Spyro, right? One incarnation that became corrupted. It is, in my thought and possibility, it is possible. And in my upcoming video that I'm talking about that, is that there's a pattern that's being followed in the villains in Spyro, which is there is an evil person, but then there is a greater evil behind it. So you got from Hero's Tale, which ties into the OG Spyro, you got Red, who was a slave, if you played Shadow Legacy, of a purple dragon. Then when you play The Legend of Spyro, you have Cinder, who was a slave of a purple dragon. So there is a repetitiveness there. Why is there a repeat of there being a corrupted dragon corrupting another dragon to do its bidding and to try to bring this dark evil thing from another dimension to a new dimension? And in both timelines of the OG Spyro and the Hero's Tale Spyro, which is OG Spyro, and Legend of Spyro, there's that tie-in of trying to drag an evil from another dimension into this current dimension. And so the next video that I would be talking about goes on to talk about the fact that there could be a greater evil than that, but it is like a bodiless evil that takes over a purple dragon, which takes over another dragon to bring it into this world. Make sense, kind of?
Yeah, it does. I think I get this is fascinating. I'm like the whole time you're talking, I'm just like, yeah, this is good. I get this.
Yeah, so that is my next video that I've been writing for the past like 6 months, because you have to be able to, when you make a theory like this, and I didn't realize the weight of the theory, that how much I thought this was going to be a video that I'd get a few thousand views and then move on from. But it's turned out to be my most popular Spyro video. People have made Wikipedia pages about it. People are talking about it, and I was just like, oh my goodness, this has grown beyond to what I could have ever expected in any video that I've ever made. And so this is why I'm hesitant to make a second video, because I don't want to ruin what I made in the first video.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm fact checking it. I'm ripping it apart. I attack it. I try different things. And of course, there are people asking questions in my comment section saying like, what about Hunter and Sparks? What about this? What about this? What about this? And I have all my theories about it, but I just don't want to disappoint people, where it's like, you know, you come out with a fantastic theory and then your follow-up theory is meh, therefore it dampens down the first theory.
Right.
So I'm very nervous to be able to release my next theory. However, eventually soon I will be able to get to it and I will release it, and hopefully people will enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting that with my videos now, because like that Twilight Harbor video of mine just kind of blew up.
Yeah, I noticed that, and I noticed that your subscribers were jumping. I was just like, whoa! Like, you were like at 700 the one day, and then I checked like 1 or 2 days later, and you were at 900. I was like, whoa, that's crazy!
I know, it's all because of the Twilight Harbor video. I swear, it's like surefire way to get views. Always make a controversial video.
Well, I mean, the way that I started was when I did my first Spyro video. It was actually funny enough. I'm making a video about that in, let me check the date here, about 10 days, 2 weeks. Because my very first Spyro video was on July 5th, 2017. And it was evidence of a Spyro remaster. And I remember that was my start of my YouTube career, was I made that. I've been trying to do YouTube for almost 9 years. Wasn't working.
Right.
Okay.
And then it just like, suddenly you find something, and then suddenly it's like, whoa, so this is what I meant to do.
Yeah, that was kind of like my calling, and it was actually funny enough. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the game League of Legends. I initially was a League of Legends YouTuber, and I had gotten a few videos that went really well, but all the videos that I posted were like hit and miss. So like I posted one video, it get 12 views. Next video I posted would get 120 views. Then one video I posted got 79,000 views, and then the next video I posted got 2 views. And it was just like, okay, this views, no views, views,
yeah,
no views.
It's like it's a roller coaster, until you finally find the one thing, you know?
Right. And that was what I was trying to figure out. And so and not to mention, and I love League of Legends, but there is a thing that the League community is very toxic, and it's very true that there are a lot of people with very strong opinions, and that if you don't agree with them, they automatically will dislike the video, automatically hate it, etc., etc. And no offense to the League community, there's many, many kind people, but there's also a lot of bitter people. So I took a break from that, and then I came back, tried doing it again. I met up with a few other League tubers, but nothing came of it. And then, funny enough, I made my first Spyro evidence video, and I remember I was so depressed because by the end of the day, it had 10 views, and I was so sad. I went to bed, I woke up, and I looked, and it had 123 views. And I was just like, oh, well, that was interesting.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the week, it hit 1,000 views, and then I received an email from Mechanizer8 saying, yeah, and that's how I met Mecha. And then through Mecha, I met Josh Gaming. And then we made a Discord, and then Jordan Fringe hopped on, and then I became friends with Jordan Fringe, and it blew up from there.
It spiraled into this community where, like, you're all well known now.
Yeah, well, it was funny because I didn't even know that there was a Spyro community, because I was so involved with, like, I thought Spyro for some people was, like, on the level of, like, like Gex the Gecko, or... it was just like a thing that was around and then just kind of died.
Yeah, kind of an obscure thing, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was. Until I was introduced, and I was just like, oh my goodness, this is not an obscure community. This is a massive community. This thing is, and it's growing.
Yeah, it's just we've all been in hiding until now, and then like suddenly reignited news drops, and we're all like, yes, and we just like smash through the door.
Yeah. Well, I got back on the hype train after the Crash Bandicoot came out, and I was playing it, and I remember thinking, man, if they did this to Spyro, this would be awesome. And then I remembered someone mentioning about doing the Crash Bandicoot code. And I was just like, oh, or that's Crash Bandicoot, the warp code that you get the Spyro demo. And I tried it, and it was quite interesting. And you got that weird cursor that disappeared.
Yeah.
And I thought nothing of it. I didn't even catch it the first time. I'm like, oh, okay, nothing happened. And then someone pointed it out online, and I was just like, oh. And I took very basic coding back in high school. And in order for that to happen, that had to be coded in. It had to be. There was, like, you had to code it in that when you punch this in, not that it would disappear, but it would try to access something that was empty because there was no trailer, right?
Right.
So I took very big, and so I thought to myself, okay, what if the game's trying to access something that's not there? Like there's an option there that shows up, but it's not there. It's invisible. You can't access it because there's nothing there. It leads to nothing. And so that's when I made my first video. And I was just like, okay. And then the first 4 figures came out, and I was just like, okay, why is there a Spyro demo code in Crash Bandicoot? Why is there a first 4 figures coming out of a Spyro? And then I had another hint. I can't remember. I can't remember. I'm actually going to be doing a video talking about 1 year of doing Spyro news and Spyro hype.
Yeah.
It was just figuring that out, putting it together. I had these little pieces of evidence. It was just like these little pieces of evidence taped together. It's like, okay, let's present this. It was so small. And then when more evidence and more evidence and more evidence started coming out, it was overwhelming. And it was amazing to be able to be a part of a community where we just started off with literally little pieces, little tiny itty bitty pieces of like, okay, we got this hint, we got this hint, and we got this hint. Okay,
Yeah.
We got 3 hints. And it felt like such an obscure thing. And then another hint would come out, and we would stitch that in. And then the hints just started coming like crazy. And I think when the quote unquote door broke, as in like almost everybody unanimously believed that was coming, was when Project Falcon came out.
Yeah.
That was the like tipping moment. Everyone, in all my previous videos, people were saying, "Oh yeah, it would be really cool for Spyro." People were convinced. Some people weren't convinced. But I think when everyone became unanimously convinced was when Project Falcon came out, and that was huge. And Falcon McBob and all these things, and that was a really resounding. Was when this thing that we've been following that started off probably that they didn't even intend for anyone to follow, and we followed it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there was me from what I knew. There was me. Mechanizer, Josh, Jordan, us 4, we were looking for stuff. And then there was a few other fringe YouTubers, SpyroTubers, I can't remember their names, unfortunately, that was covering it as well. But it was like we were consistent on it, and we kept looking for it. We kept looking, and to be able to find that it wasn't a cold trail, that we were right, that at the time that when Crash Bandicoot was out, they were working on Spyro. There was a Spyro thing. It wasn't the thing that we requested. It was a thing that was already in the works. And that was a satisfying feeling that we were able to figure that out.
Yeah. For months, like, everyone was like, what could this mean? And, like, I saw so many videos, like, just going so in-depth on that, and just like, could there be a Spyro remaster coming soon? And that's like, and then I got interested too. I was like, huh, and I started watching those videos on deciphering those clues and all that.
Well, I was one of the few YouTubers that actually predicted or thought that Toys for Bob was going to be doing it.
Yes, I remember seeing your video, and then when it was announced, I was like, oh my god, he was right.
That was a surreal experience. Was when you make a theory, and it's one thing to make a theory, but it's one thing to be a kind of like a standalone in the theory, and then that theory was proven correct, and you're just kind of like, whoa. Right, and I'm not saying that I was the only one, but I'm saying that I was one of few that thought, what if it's not? Because there was a GBI leak talking about Crash Bandicoot, and that Vicarious Visions was doing more Crash Bandicoots, and then you got the Laura Kate Dale leak that was saying, oh yeah, but Vicarious Visions is doing Spyro, and I was just like, something's not making sense here, something's not connecting. Either one is false, or partially false, and trying to figure out what was right and wrong, and it turned out that Laura Kate Dale was correct in a sense.
Yes.
And the GBI so far has been correct. So they were both correct. GBI pretty much all the way. Laura Kate Dale, she got the major detail right, and that was that Spyro was coming. That was the major detail. That's like 70% of the concept. Everything else was just tidbits and 10%, for the fact of what company's doing it. But she was close. It was under the Activision banner. So, it was really surreal to be able to see that happen.
Yeah. I remember, your videos, I think, were some of the very first that I watched when it came to news about a Spyro remaster. I remember watching some of your videos first, and that's when I got interested and then found out about, through you, I think I found out, about Josh and Jordan and then all those people. And then I'm just like, I want to do Spyro videos. So I did.
And that's great.
Yeah. So that's when I did that the analysis on the trailer. And then I thought about it and I was like, why don't I just become a Spyro tuber? That's cool. I love Spyro and I have a billion things I could talk about relating to it. So why not?
Exactly. And that's one of the I mean, your story just touched my heart a little bit, because that makes me really happy that in some way, shape, or form that I nudged somebody to try to do something different, to explore something. Because honestly, being a YouTuber, I remember exactly 1 year ago was not possible, impossible, not possible, won't ever happen. And now I'm facing, I'm getting laid off at the end of this week from my full-time job. And now I look at YouTube and say, this is entirely possible. I can live off of this, no problem. No problem, but I can live off of this. It's going to be difficult, but we will still have a roof over our head. We're still going to have food in our tummies. We might not be able to go to the movies as often as we hoped, but it doesn't matter. We're surviving. And I think that to go from impossible to entirely possible in less than a year, or about a year, I think is incredible. And anybody can do that. And you can see, as you've seen the growth of your channel, that if you have a love, if you have a passion for something and you want to talk about it and you really, really do enjoy talking about it, you can grow and you can do well in growing and you can improve. And it's just something amazing to see, because when you have people backing you and you have people encouraging you to say, keep going, keep going, keep going. And then even after 3 months, looking back 3 months ago, seeing your videos from 3 months ago to where you are now, it's incredible to see that improvement, because there's a visual improvement. You can see a visual path that you took and a visual thought process and a visual everything and things that you learned and videos that you did that may not have done so well as you thought that would have. One of my Spyro videos I have right now has a 49% dislike rate.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, I did something wrong here. What did I do? And then I realized, and I tried something. I saw another YouTuber. He tried, and that's the thing, is that the way you start is you start by mimicking people.
Yes.
Right? You see, okay, they're talking about this, I'll talk about that too. And then you try it, and then you're like, okay, I didn't really like doing this, I'm going to change this and adjust it. And you create your own style. And while I was in my infancy stage of my YouTube channel, I tried doing what a channel called Arlo did. Are you familiar with him or no?
I do not believe I've heard that name before.
Okay, so he's a Nintendo tour, but what's his unique thing is that the guy is a puppeteer, and he has a character named Arlo, and the puppet reviews things. Oh. And when the Nintendo Switch was coming out, he did a video about how the Switch could do amazing, but also how the Switch could do bad. So I tried, okay, let's try that. So I tried how
the Spyro remaster could ruin everything?
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that. It's always in my recommended, that's why.
Yeah. So, exactly. So I had that, and how the Spyro remaster could change everything did okay. But that video got a lot more views, but a lot more dislikes, and I learned that putting a only positive video will do good, but to not go overly positive as well. If I want to show the negative, I gotta show it both together. I can't show all negative, right? Or if I am going to show negative, I have to show a lot of positivity and explanation, because people were saying, oh, I'm anti-Spyro remaster, I'm stupid, I'm just a troll, and I was just like, have you seen my other content? That's no, I'm
Yeah,
not.
completely not. And I've seen videos that like absolutely trash Reignited, and it's clear that your video is just like nothing like that.
Yeah, and one of my recent videos, it tried going that route, but it dumbed down quite a bit with my 5 critiques for the Spyro Reignited trilogy. And I explained over and over again that, and people were saying like, "Oh, you're nitpicking." I said, "Yes, but that's the
Yeah.
point. Is that I am nitpicking, but I'm not nitpicking in a negative way. Like, if these are my nitpicks, if these 5 things, these are my 5 biggest critiques about the whole game, and if they're small, what does that tell you? That speaks volumes about how good Toys for Bob is doing if my nitpicks are things that are small. And I even say at the start of my video and throughout the video, if none of these nitpicks are addressed, it's not going to ruin the whole game for me.
Yeah.
Right? It might be a bummer in some areas. Like, for me, my 2 biggest things that I felt was the Egg Thief voice and the Twilight Harbor controversy. And
yeah.
I get where Toys for Bob is going with that. I get what they're going, and I think in my prediction, the reason why they went that route is because they want to give the rating of the game as an E instead of E10 or teen. Crash Bandicoot was E10 and up, and I think that they want to go for a rated E rating. And I think that there's still a lot of wiggle room in between the E and E10 rating for it to be more closer to the original than to have it as Splatoon goop, right?
Right. I mean, some people are saying like, well, it could be, you know, like they're shooting acid or something like that, and like, oh, that's a fine idea. I think that's fine and stuff, but like, they didn't really confirm that. And when like being told that, being asked about whether it was paint, they just kind of said yeah, and it's like, okay, well then did they confirm it's paint or not? So now we all think it's paint.
Well, it looks like goop. Overall, it doesn't matter what it is, it's goop, right? Mm-hmm. If it's acid goop, it's goop. If it's paint goop, it's goop. If it's slobber goop, it's goop. Nonetheless, no matter how you slice it, it looks like goop.
Yeah.
Right?
The first thing that came to my head was just purple goo. That was the very first thing that I said.
It looks like something that you make in science class in grade 3. It just is purple goop, right? So
it's like flubber.
The fact that exactly, like flubber. And also the fact that, you know, going with a purple goop on a purple dragon, it to me, the idea, I get what they're going with it, and what we had what Josh Gaming suggested, and I think where a lot of people are running with it, is the bare minimum change is to at least change it to orange, right? So that it's closer to the original, right?
Yeah.
So the bare minimum change that everyone is asking for is make it orange. Then from there, people are asking, okay, make it look like less goop, make it look more maybe paintball-y, maybe more, and then I suggested, why don't you go like red hot cannonballs, or maybe there was another idea that someone came up with, and it would make sense too if you change it to a flamethrower, because they do that arcing motion. And I was just
they definitely have like it looks like it should be a flamethrower almost.
Yeah, and it was like, okay, a flamethrower, that's an interesting idea, and it would be playing with the idea of fighting fire with fire.
I know, that'd be great.
So there are a bunch of ideas that they can take to stay away from the E10 rating, if that's what they're going for. If they're hitting the E10 rating, then they can go even further. If it's just the fact that they don't want it to be an AK-47, which I understand. And I think fans have to realize that, you know, and no offense to anybody, is that it's less of a headache if the character has, you know, if the character has a gun, right? And Spyro is more targeted for kids in some senses than otherwise Crash Bandicoot, because Crash Bandicoot was insanely hard.
Yeah.
I.e. Stormy Ascent. Because it wasn't made for my nephew. My 7-year-old nephew tries to play Crash Bandicoot, and he can't do it because he's like, it's too hard. I don't want to play it anymore.
Oh yeah, I mean it's insanely hard. I mean, seriously.
Pun unintended.
Yeah, it deserves to be called that.
Yeah, it's the insane trilogy because it is difficult, right?
Yeah.
And of course, we played it as kids, but at the same token of time, you know, games were expensive as kids. When we got a game, it didn't matter if it was garbage or not. You said to mom and dad, "Oh yeah, I love it," and you played it because there wasn't many games at that time.
Yeah.
So, and of course, Crash Bandicoot was amazing. It had its charms, but you know, we learned and we adapted and we became better gamers because of it. And now, definitely Spyro is targeted to the younger audience. But not like not kids. Kids, like adults can still play it because it's like, okay, if you want to just play through the game and just get the bare minimum, yeah, a kid can do that. But for you to 100% the game, that's quite a bit more difficult. So there is that difficulty curve where it's just, I'm just going to finish it. I just want to get to the end and I'm happy. Then great. Then a kid can do that. But if you want 100% it, find every gem, every dragon, do everything correctly, then that's where the challenge is for an older audience, right? So they might be aiming for an E, or they might be aiming for an E10. I'm not sure. So, but the last thing that you want is this headache where if a parent is watching their kid play and in a rated E game, there's a character shooting them with AK-47s and machetes, right? And then you get people boycotting the game. You get people who are really sensitive. And to avoid that headache, they might have just said, okay, go this way. But they went too far because I understand where they're going. So I think if they pulled it back a little bit, like, okay, not as Splatoon-y, and let's pull it back maybe paintball, maybe, because getting hit by a paintball, it hurts. Like, it hurts.
Yeah, it does hurt. So
it would make sense. It still wouldn't be, because I understand there are people with different agendas, political. I'm not getting involved in that because, that's ridiculous about the political correctness, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not getting involved in that. All I'm saying is I understand where they're going with it, and I understand the headache that they foresaw, so that I can understand why, but I think they went too far, and that they can pull it back just a little bit, like, okay, let's bring it back a little bit, because even if you looked at it as the way it was, purple on purple is just not a good combination. A complementary color of purple is yellow, but close color to yellow is orange, and so orange was the color, yellowy orange, and so yellowy orange was the original color of the bullets. So you could pull it back just a little bit to that point, and I think most fans would be fairly okay with that.
Yeah.
And then just even looking at that, let's not even talk about the guns to begin with. Let's just take a look at it as is. Like I said, purple on purple, not so great.
Because, I definitely wanted to bring back, like, that childlike innocence, But also I don't want it to be dumbed down in any way.
Right, exactly. And this is why people are worried about, like, the Nork booty, and everyone's worried about that. I'm going to be honest, I think we're going to be okay. I think we're going to see HD 1080p Nork booty. I think it'll be perfectly fine. I know a lot of people are really terrified of that, but I think, honestly, crude humor is different from violence. Crude humor is a lot more accepted in North America than other places.
Yeah.
Butts, poop jokes, these immature, quote unquote immature jokes, are more accepted in the younger culture. I mean, like, when you put 4 7-year-old kids in a room, what are they laughing about? Farts and poops and eggs. So to go on and say that, oh, that's, butts, that's what they're laughing about. To go on to say, like, oh, that's too immature. No, that's kid humor. That's childish humor, and which I still find hilarious. So call me a child if you like, but like a mooning Nork, I think they'll be fine because it's a Nork. The things are ugly, right? It's not done in any sexual manner. It's just literally mooning, and it's this over-like monster.
It was just something like to try to be funny. Like they And I know Insomniac had like a really dirty sense of humor when it came to Ratchet and Clank, but like it wasn't like that with Spyro. They just kind of like put it into just be funny.
It was just like, hey, look, he's mooning you. That's funny. It's pixelated butt cheeks, right? I mean, it was a quote unquote cheeky joke. So
low poly butts.
So I think we'll be fine with no. I think it's just because of what's been happening in America with all the violence and what the news has been talking about, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think they just want to avoid that headache. And I understand that point of view. I understand where they're going with that.
Right.
So. And I think as fans, we also have to compromise as well because, like I said in my recent video, like, if it's not pixel to pixel perfect, it's garbage. No, we can't be like that because we need to be able to have some compromises as well for Toys for Bob, right? Because they're compromising for us. It goes back that way as well. It's like, okay, maybe we should compromise for them a little bit and understand where they're coming from. So certain things like the egg thief voice, that can be changed, that can be adjusted without there being any political or moral issues. The guns, I can understand where that's coming from. Even though some people, perhaps like me, who don't think that that's an issue, I can understand why other people think it is an issue. So I can compromise. Yeah. But let's compromise together, right? Let's not fire hate comments at each other saying, like, you're dumb. No, you're stupid. You think you want guns in a video game. You're dumb. No, you think that it should be changed. You're dumb. No. It's like, okay, I understand your point of view. You should understand my point of view. Let's compromise to improve it overall.
Because, like, the gun thing, like I said in my video, I said that I wanted to be reminded of a time when not everything was, like, offensive and had to be, like, PC and stuff like that.
Right.
I mean, it's not necessarily that I'm calling Toys for Bob PC, it's just that...
Right.
It's just that I wanted to be reminded of a time when not everything was, like, sort of had to be centered around that and made me think of it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. But in thinking in Toys of Bob's point of view is, you know, when they're sitting there at the round table saying like, okay, do we want people to boycott our game over something simple, right? And that in the end, what talks the most is green, which is money, right?
Yeah.
And if there is a threat of sales severely due to something sensitive, right? They'll probably change it, and we're probably going to see. We might see changes in Scorch as well. We might not, but I think we will. They might be able to swing it as a fact of instead of the characters in Scorch looking like part of the Taliban, maybe they can make them look like sand ninjas, but not. So it's not. They're not with turbans, but they have. You know, they still have the white, but it might be like white robes done with ninja or whatever, or they might do something different that still keeps that essence of that character, but not be as what some people would consider as offensive, right? Make sense?
Yes. Ironically, I think like because you said it's all about like the sales and stuff. If there's a risk that, you know, sales could like plummet because of keeping the guns, like ironically, I think the issue is like going to be not keeping the guns. Like that might be what causes sales to plummet. But because I do understand where they're coming from. However, the visuals and the music, like combined in that level, everything, you know, had an impact on me, and then a lot of kids too.
Well, yeah, because like you said in your video, you know, you've been running around and you're fighting shepherds and you're fighting these lighthearted things, and then you enter this stage and you get shot by a gun. It shows the weight of, oh, okay, so now we're here. We're at this level.
We're doing this. Like, what's this? It's really jarring, but like, it's so memorable, you know?
It's like, you know, you go from, you know, kitty, you know, shepherd with a long wood beating people over the head with a stick to now you're fighting military. You're fighting the last sense of defense that Nasty Nork has before you go and face him yourself.
Yeah.
But like I said, and you know, initially, because I didn't see the footage, someone told me they shot paintballs, and I was just like, okay, I don't think there's anything wrong with paintballs. And I made the comparison saying, like, you have the magic of treetops, and then you throw an AK-47 in there, and that's a style jarring change. But then when I saw the footage, because I didn't see the footage, I was only described to it. I'm like, that's not paintballs, that's goop.
Yeah,
there's a big difference between paintballs and goop, right? Like this should be changed because this is not goop. This is not paintball. This is goop, and you know you think immediately Splatoon, and people say, "Oh, why do you keep thinking Splatoon?" I'm like, because
it looks like Splatoon.
It looks like Splatoon. It looks like you literally have your standard gun from Splatoon and you're firing it in a wave. It looks like a Splatoon gun. Now there are ways where you could possibly change it where. Like you have the one boss I can't remember his name. I never can from Crash Bandicoot where he has a Tommy gun. And Pinstripe, yeah. Pinstripe has the Tommy gun. There is a sense where gun violence becomes not gun violence when you have an oversized gun that's so ridiculous and stupid that it's not practical, that it leaves that sense of gun violence. You get what I mean? So when you have this, so there's another route where they could go Looney Tunes style, where it's this big, massive, stupid gun, where it's so unrealistic and stupid that it would never work. Like you could have like the giant Gatling gun, right, instead of a AK-47, and have them do the spray shoot. Then it becomes comedic again, right? So there's a sense of like there's a sense where if it gets too ridiculous in terms of size, it becomes funny. It becomes dumb. It becomes slapstick when you have this giant gun that is so stupidly massive that would never work ever if you tried engineering it. And so then you would have that humor still. You would still have the gun.
Yeah. And
you would be out of that reach. So there's multiple. We could talk about this all day. There's multiple things that could still fit within the E rating and not make people feel offended.
Right.
And I think that they just took a really safe position on it. Like, they didn't just go safe. They went safe, safe, double safe. And I understand that. It's like strapping a baby in the car. You have to make sure that everything is good, everything is fine. But you don't need 6 seatbelts and bubble wrap to make sure that the kid is fine, right?
Right.
It's like, okay, now you've gone too far, right? Now you can pull up, you can remove at least 3 layers of bubble wrap now. Come on, right?
Yeah.
So.
It's something that's, like, almost hard to explain to people. Like, you can break the fantasy immersion without breaking the cartoony immersion.
Right.
It's like, it's kind of hard to explain because I don't know if people, like, see a difference in that, but I mean, I do because of course in Nasty's world, it's supposed to be a break from, like, all the, fantastical charm of the Dragon World. So it's supposed to be, different and kind of jarring and stuff.
Right. If you wanted to, like, I know exactly what you're going for, and, luckily, I went through college in film and broadcasting, radio, television, and film. And there was a concept that they taught us that's called contrast and affinity. And what that is that if you have the basic terms is, if you show a row of colors that goes blue, 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 red, blue, 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 what color stood out to you?
Red.
Red, because it's the one thing that's different, right? And what the blue is called affinity, and what the red is called is contrast. It stands out, right? If you have 50 black squares and then 1 white square, where does your eyes go to? The white square. And so the way that they taught us for editing in film was that if you have a bunch of the same stuff, break it with infinity. Like, let's say you're in a conversation piece and someone says, I can't stand you. Then you cut. I can't stand you. Yeah, and then you cut. Well, you did this, and you're cutting in between. And all of a sudden, the one person said, yeah, well, I cheated on you. But then you don't cut and you hold it, right? That moment lasts longer because you're telling the audience, this is a moment. You're forcibly telling the audience, this is a moment.
This is a moment. Pay attention.
Pay attention, right? This is a moment. We're not cutting anyway. We went from cutting, and then we go from a slow pan out. And they explain why they cheated, and we see the reaction, but we haven't cut yet. And so you're on this. So it's like, okay, this is different. Pay attention, right? And so what the game does is that, in that sense, is that you're playing the goofy same thing. You're fighting banana boys. You're fighting shepherds. You're fighting Norks that are shivering in the corner that sound like frogs. And then you show up and there's a gun level. And you're like, oh gosh, this is completely different.
Yeah.
And it's jarring. And that's why it has a lasting impact for you. Because everything was the same fantastical, mystical, hippity-hoppity, everything's perfect. And then all of a sudden, dead stop change.
Yeah, but in a sense, it's like, it's still like cartoony because, like, even though the Norks have, like, machine guns, they still, like, waddle up to you and look all goofy. Like, so it still has that, it's all blended together in just the most perfect way. It's just kind of funny. It's, like, scary and funny.
Mm-hmm. And, I know exactly what you mean. And that's where the difference is. That's where it totally makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, well, we talked about the Twilight Harbor thing for quite a while, huh?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Oh,
so is there any other questions that you have, or?
Well, let's see. I think the last topic was opinions on Legend, but I think we did already talk about that.
Yes, we did.
Oh my gosh, that was all I had. Oh no.
That's okay. So if you want, I can quickly, because I do have to go in a few minutes, so what I can do is I can wrap up by giving my thoughts on the Reignited trilogy, if that's what you want.
Of course. Go ahead.
So, alright, so the Reignited trilogy, I think, is honestly a fantastic way of going about Spyro. And I honestly think that the Reignited trilogy is a change in the way that the gaming industry is going to be, because now we are looking at a different type of style of a remake, remaster, however you want to call it. And someone on my comment section had coined it as a reimagining. And I was shocked by that idea because, I was shocked by that idea because initially when I saw the trailer, I was a little bit jarred by it.
Yeah.
But about halfway through the trailer, I fell in love with it because I didn't expect that style. But what they're doing is that they're changing the way the game is presented.
Yes.
But it's still the core game. And I think that is something the coined word of, because you could call the Crash Bandicoot a remaster. You could, because it looks, and it's funny the way it's described is that it looks like the way that you saw it as a kid through rose-tinted glasses, right? You think back, you're like, oh yeah, this looks all the same, and you look at the old footage, you're like, ugh, no, it doesn't, right?
Yeah.
And because your brain filled in the blocks. And if someone were to turn and tell me and say, yeah, this is how I pictured Spyro as a kid, no, you didn't. You did not picture Spyro like this as a child. I know you didn't, because this is completely different. Some areas, yeah, through the rose-tinted glasses, you could maybe, like, Stonehill, where there's similar, but certain areas that are gone through such drastic changes, it's hard to believe where someone would have turned and say, yes, this is how I pictured it as a child.
Yeah,
you could say it for Crash Bandicoot very easily.
You could say that. It's more like a thing where it's just like, this is how I wanted it to look. You could say that and stuff.
But the way that they did with Spyro, and this is why I was shocked at first when I saw the trailer, because I was just like, oh no. At first I was like, oh no, this is different. And I was saying to myself, oh my gosh, this is different. What are they doing? And then when I saw more of it halfway through, I was like, I get it. It makes sense. I love it. I love every bit of it. That's amazing. And what they're doing is that they're taking they're changing it, but for the better. Because if you look back and you play through Spyro, even like Stonehill, it was fairly bland, right? Green plains everywhere, green everywhere. But now they're spicing it up. There's brown patches, right? The grass has grown. There's flowers. And they're taking it a different palette and art style, and it works beautifully.
Yes. And
this is why I think the Spyro Reignited trilogy is going to go down in history as it's almost borderline its own genre, because it's not quite a remake, it's not quite a remaster. They call it the Crash Bandicoot a remaster plus. I wouldn't even call it this, because it's hard to explain because you're not improving it. So you got the remaster aspect as it's the same game through and through. But when you say remade, you got that aspect too, but it's taking a soul of it, a life of its own, almost. And it looks visually like almost a completely different game, but it's familiar, right?
Yeah.
And this would likely be called, and the best way to call it, in my opinion, as a film guy, is Spyro Take 2. Like, okay, we did it through once, let's do it again. Same foundation, but let's improve on that. Let's change it. Let's alter it, because a lot of people can call the Crash Bandicoot thing too safe. I think Crash worked fine because it was that semi-realistic, but Spyro is this fantastical, mystical game, and I think what they're doing with the color palette, the over-exaggerated colors, suns, and everything, it works perfectly. It wouldn't have worked for Crash Bandicoot. It would not have worked for Crash Bandicoot. It works perfectly for Spyro, and I think Toys for Bob is doing a simply phenomenal job with it.
Yes, I believe that too. Because, mostly everything that I've seen is just, it just looks great. I couldn't really have asked for, anything better than what they've shown us.
Right. Oh. So, unfortunately, I have to head off.
Right. Okay, well, it was absolutely great having you on here. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, and maybe sometime we can do it again.
Yes, I hope so. So anyway, that will do it for this episode. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, subscribe for more Spyro content, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, this is Miharu, signing off.
Bye.